Now, I want to introduce our next guest. He's been on the show before. I don't quite know how to describe him or give him a title. I'm sure he doesn't want to have a hard and fast title, but I shall call him today, at least initially, as a health advocate, Clive de Carle. But he's many other things. I'm sure he'll let me know how he would like to be addressed formally in just a second. But Clive has a very interesting story to tell, not just about his personal life, but what he's doing now and what his mission is in the world today. And we will be helping to make Clive's products available through 21st Century Wire. If you go on our main site, you'll see right above the features section, Clive de Carle, there's a link to his store, and we encourage people to explore Clive's online store in terms of health supplements. That will be available. You'll be seeing more of that, and we'll be talking more about some of these issues and some of these things that we can do to improve our overall health and our natural immunity and all of these things that I think everybody is interested in doing. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome on to the Sunday Wire this week, Clive de Carle. Hello, Clive.
Hello, Patrick. So kind of you to invite me again. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. And I didn't have a title for you. I mean, some people might call you a nutritionist. Some people might call you a nutrition consultant, a well-being consultant, a health advocate. So I don't know if you have a official title, Clive. I'm sure because you do so many different things. But how would one address you formally?
I think traditionally I'd be called a bloke that knows some stuff.
Okay.
Something like that. I started off in ophthalmic optics, contact lenses, and I sold a company and suddenly I had enough money to decide, well, I'm going to redesign my life. What do I want to do? And sort of opening the world up to possibilities is what I wanted to do. And I realized that loads of people were ill, so I started learning health. And now really, I suppose I'm a health consultant maybe, or a health educator. I don't really do consultations really anymore, but I do make videos, and I feel that my job is to try and explain actually how simple it can be to fix really, really huge problems which are beyond the doctor's capability to fix.
And tell us, because you also got started because you yourself had let's say, a major health challenge in your life, and overcoming that, I think, is probably a big part of your story and your journey. But if you wanted to tell us about your personal story.
I'd always been interested in natural health right from a young age, but I made one huge weird mistake, really unlike me. I took an antibiotic once, and the next thing I know, I'm in hospital. I've got type 1 diabetes, I've got arthritis so badly I can't even get dressed anymore, and I'm just getting worse and worse, and they're monitoring me 24 hours a day, and they say it's hopeless, nothing they can do to stop the decline. But after a few weeks, I figured it out myself by reading books, and I realized I was low on vitamins and minerals primarily, and a year and a half later, I have totally recovered from the arthritis. That was 35 years ago. I've never had a twinge of arthritis since. It's reversible, despite what people have told you. And it gave me the opportunity to realize that, look, health is an interesting thing to study. And I've just, for years now, just looked at what is health. Because actually it's really simple. We're self-repairing. So all we've got to do is to figure out how to self-repair. And our ancestors got it right a lot of the time. They were eating naturally, seasonally, and they were living a much more natural life than we are. So in this modern era where the food is generally speaking poisoned, where the soil is generally speaking poisoned, not to mention the air and the water, we have to take steps to stay healthy in an unhealthy time. And compared to the dire situation of taking a drug to fix a problem, if you can adjust your diet and take some supplements and get your health back, that's the way to go. People lose their health, they go to a doctor who doesn't study health, they study disease and they study medicine, and they want to get their health back, but the poor old doctor, they're taught not to cure anything, they're taught to treat things. And, while everybody's low these days on minerals and vitamins, nobody's low on pharmaceutical drugs. But the doctors only have, the GP really only has pharmaceutical drugs to offer you. Maybe they'll make the symptoms better for a while, but regrettably, they're not taught health cures. But our ancestors knew them. To survive this long through history, there would have been somebody in the family who had a medicine chest or a knowledge of herbs or whatever to keep us alive if we cut ourselves or got ill for any reason, or whatever it was. And one might think that in a few generations that's been totally lost, but luckily it hasn't. And now with modern technology, the ability to research so easily, the field of how to fix yourself by yourself, I think, is really quite comprehensive now. It's reasonably easy for most people with the right resources to fix themselves relatively, no matter what.
I mean, received wisdom, Clive, and we hear this all the time. We see this in the media reports, disturbing documentaries on health and all sorts of, exposés, that there's certain things that are irreversible. Like if you have type 1 diabetes, there's no cure for it. It's not reversible. You just have to live with it, get used to the insulin shots. Or if you have MS, multiple sclerosis, there's so many of these different bevy of conditions, and I'm sure you're familiar with all of the main ones, that no, you don't even delude yourself to think that you can either get rid of this condition or, God forbid, cure it. It's just not going to happen. There's only pharmaceutical solution for it, and it's only maintenance. You can only maintain or help with the pain relief and help with the discomfort, but you will never be free of whatever regime that you're on. And can you speak to that?
Some of what you say is correct. Things like type 2 diabetes, generally speaking, that can be sorted in a month. Arthritis, those sort of things are all reversible. Type 1 diabetes, which I have myself, I haven't been able to reverse that one. It's some sort of, ironic situation that the one thing I don't know how to fix is the very one that I've got. But I've seen all sorts of, so to speak, incurable, according to the doctors, incurable, genetic, irreversible diseases fixed, sometimes in a day. In fact, I had one just a couple of weeks ago. A couple of weeks ago, we had a Zoom meeting. I have this thing called Secret Health Club, and there was a meeting of some members of the Secret Health Club, and we were discussing things. And one of them was that this chap, I think he was about 20 years old, was saying that in one day, using something called targeted selenium, he had stopped being ADHD. He'd been ADHD for his whole life, essentially, and in one day sorted it out. The doctors have told him that that was an irreversible condition. But I had somebody else who tried another material called, it's nanopolycosanol. I can talk about that later. And they've been told, or their parents have been told, that this child, who's 18, non-verbal, 20 stone, super big guy. You couldn't argue with him. If he wanted to eat from the refrigerator, there was no stopping him. Anyway, she gave him the nanopolycosanol, and on the first day, for an hour he cried, which was an unusual. He'd cry, but unusual for an hour. And then later on that day, for the first time, he said the word "mama." So there are cases where dramatic results can happen ridiculously quickly. So in the Secret Health Club meeting, and then somebody else came in and said, I've had a result with the targeted selenium. My grey hair has grown back to its old colour. And then she said, and by the way, I find that my addiction to red wine has stopped again in a day. So it's about finding the materials that really work, because most of the health products out there, in the supplements in the health food stores, most of those companies, literally the whole company has been bought out by the pharmaceutical industry or or the arms industry or whatever, there's a tiny percentage left that are really selling you the product you'd really want if you only knew. But you go into the health food store and it's it's amazing there. You don't know what to choose. So I started trying to, some years ago, trying to simplify it as to what really are the keys. And I realized there are maybe 10 or so absolutely key substances, some like vitamin C, like selenium, that pretty much, 95% of us all are low on because it's not in the food anymore. And, for your listeners, it may be simpler than they previously thought to get their health back.
And in terms of the food, so you're saying that, let's say we go to the produce section at the supermarket and, we think we're eating healthy. We fill up our basket with fruit and veg, but we get organic as well. And you're saying that the mineral content is just not there, or it's not what it was in the past, and there's different reasons for that. Some organic food, I'm sure, if the farm's really good and they take care of their soil and so forth. But I know that you could probably tell us that there are big differences, like all fruit and veg are not created equal, basically, in terms of nutritional content, and that you will need supplements of these key items in order to replace what would have been there, like, let's say, 50 or 100 years ago, but is not there anymore. But go ahead.
Well, I've been lucky enough to have had an organic farm for about 10 years. This is many years ago. And it was on soil that had never been poisoned with chemicals. So over that 10 years or so where I lived there, it was totally unnecessary for me to take supplements because I was eating a lot of wild food. There happened to be lots of wild mushrooms and all sorts. It was very natural. And I used to go to a local spring, which was quite nearby, and all the water we drank or cooked with was spring water from the mountains, and it was idyllic. So my neighbours, one day I went up the hill and I noticed the field, my neighbour's field bordering on mine, all the trees were dead, fruit trees, and I said, well, what did you do? And he said, oh, well, this is in Spain, by the way. He said the EU was subsidizing, you get 25 kilos of chemicals for, ridiculous, 25 euros or something, super cheap. And he said, well, twice must be better. And he'd wiped out his whole field. And we've got a choice of supporting our local farmers who are getting it right, or supporting, supporting supermarkets like Deathco. Too many people are going into Deathco who are themselves destroying modern agriculture by insisting that the farmers do it the very cheapest. And most of the small farmers are being wiped out worldwide, as I think pretty much everybody knows. The big corporations, particularly BlackRock and Vanguard, because they own everything in the world pretty much, or the major shareholders in everything, they're buying up all the land and farming. We're going to be held to ransom by the whole agricultural business, and it's coming fairly close. The deliberate destruction of the economies of the world is going along very nicely from their perspective. They're doing an absolutely brilliant job, and unfortunately the people are making it worse by going on strike and going on marches where they could be doing something sensible, like planting food as the demonstration, trying to become as self-dependent as possible, starting their own currencies. The unfortunately, of course, the leaders of unions and so on, and many of the leaders in all sorts of areas are put there by the authorities to make people do the very thing that destroys the economy even quicker. I think I've digressed from supplements, but we've got a choice. I mean, one of my favorite analogies is this beautiful woman gets off this beautiful horse carrying a beautiful baby, and the woman says to you, would you mind helping me? Would you mind just looking after my baby briefly, looking after the horse, because I've got to do something urgent, and you've got the time, so you're happy to do that. So I've got the horse and the baby. And she says, by the way, I don't have to say the baby's very valuable, but the horse is worth 40 million quid. So, what are you going to feed the horse and the baby? Well, we might decide that avocados, carrots, oats, we've got a few foods we could think of to feed both. And so how much poison shall we put in the food for the horse? And how much poison shall we put in the food for the baby? Should it be 1% or 0.5%, or, just how much poison should it be? So clearly we don't want to poison the baby or the horse. But every time we go to Deathco and we buy something, yes, they're saying it's organic, but is it really? But anyway, let's say it is. Let's say it isn't. Then it will be poisoned. If you feed that horse or that baby anything that isn't organic at the very least, then you're going to be poisoning the baby. And we have to stop supporting corporate evil and not buy poisoned foods at all, ever. Yes, financially, it can be a bit tough, but this is why instead of marching, we ought to be planting. And if you don't have a garden, loads of other people, and all they're going to eat next spring is grass. We could be planting now for the future, and I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, no, that's a great point and a great message too. Now, in the last 18 months, last 20 months, you've been doing what you do for many years, and then all of a sudden, this tsunami crashes onto the shore. You know what I'm talking about, the global pandemic. And all of a sudden, the hysteria is running rife. Everybody's first concerned about their immune system, but that was quickly subsumed by the obsession with vaccines. So, and then this schism has appeared, and the schism is natural immunity versus synthetic immunity. Natural immunity or natural health, which you are born with, or your natural state, and then there's this other one that you have to pay a subscription to that's conferred to you by the corporation and the products that they're selling, and genetically modified products as well, vaccines, or we're talking about, or jabs or injections. Were you getting inundated with, because I know some of your customers are probably thinking, Clive, what do I need to protect me from COVID, to protect me from the coronavirus, to strengthen my immune system? And I know this isn't quite a straightforward conversation, because we do have this slightly diverging philosophies between germ theory and terrain theory. And so depending on which one you lean more towards or subscribe to in terms of the philosophy, you're going to have a very different answer to some of these questions. So I just want to, hand that back to you and just tell us the beginning of the COVID era and how the conversation went for you and the people who you're trying to help.
Well, my own personal experience throughout life, I'm now 67, so up until about 15 years ago, I used to get colds or flu, that kind of stuff, where I might lose my sense of taste or lose my sense of smell, that sort of thing. And, good old detox, all this snot and everything would come out like mad for ages. I may be sweating and I'd be having a good old detox, really. And that used to happen, say 3 times a year. And then I suddenly discovered that I was low on vitamin D in winter. So I started supplementing with 10,000 IUs of vitamin D in winter. And it's so cheap, it's silly. And I've never had a sniffle since. So for me, that was all it was. I was eating pretty well, so I'd got enough vitamin C and I was getting enough zinc, and I was eating well enough that for me that was the only thing. So I just, in the winter, if I haven't been getting sunshine, I will take vitamin D. And you can get a test online, very cheap, to see, make sure you haven't taken too much or too little. So, but for others, it may be vitamin D and vitamin C, because, if you're eating fresh vegetables and fresh fruit, the vitamin C is there. But vitamin C deteriorates with time and deteriorates with heat. So by the time it's ended up, in your kitchen, how much vitamin C is left? Well, it may not be very much at all. And so for a lot of people, supplementing with vitamin C hugely valuable. And at this point, I need to put in a disclaimer that if I use the words cancer or cure or vitamin C, I'm spelling them all with a K because for legal reasons, if I spell these words with a K, that's fine. The law is very specific with spelling. So about 2 years after I recovered 35 years ago from antibiotic poisoning and the arthritis, my dad's best friend, who happened to be a banker in New York, funnily enough, he got cancer for the second time, and he'd been given some weeks to live. He was all right, but given time, not much time. Anyway, he rings up Linus Pauling, the only bloke to have won the Nobel Prize twice by himself, and he was famous for his vitamin C research. He said, "What do I do? I got cancer the second time." And Linus Pauling said, "Take 35 grams of vitamin C in divided doses per day." And he did. And when he did die, it wasn't from cancer, and that was 20 years later. So vitamin C, anything that one might take a needle for, anything that you've been told is infectious or whatever, and it could be huge, like smallpox or HIV or really anything. Vitamin C, in the right quantity, spread out properly, taken correctly, preferably with a few cofactors, will overcome the lot. I mean, when I was young, there were people around with like these metal calipers to help them walk because they hadn't been able to walk because they caught polio. Now, polio, it was proven by medical doctors some 60 years ago that vitamin C totally reversed polio. And it was shown that it did the same with pretty much everything. So, yes, people may need cofactors, particularly vegans, for instance. The people who aren't eating properly raised animal products, it could be cheese or butter or cream or whatever, they're more likely to be lacking the nutrition that we all need than maybe the meat eaters. But our ancestors didn't have these health problems we have now because they were eating the real thing rather than, say, a cow that doesn't know what grass is, that doesn't know what sunshine is. If you think about it, in the wild, cows like to graze on mountain pastures, for instance, on the hillsides where there's the herbs and the wildflowers and the mushrooms and so on. They like to graze on the leaves of the trees. And the old varieties were like Jerseys and Guernseys. Jerseys are the slightly smaller, brown cows, and they have the really creamy, delicious milk. The best milk is Jersey, so they say. Cheese and yogurt made from Jersey milk is wonderful as well. And but if you just fed the cow grass, right, that's a monoculture. It's like feeding you broccoli for the rest of your life. Cows don't eat grass, despite what any child will tell you. They eat pastures and woodland and so on. So then the cows are injected with money-making needles. They don't need it. I had a herd of quite old. I've had places in the country near old varieties of cattle, and I remember one day the cattle always used to look over the fence and see me. And one day they look like they've all got colds, and they'd all been vaccinated that day. And boy, did those cows look sorry for themselves. It wasn't right. So if you are going to eat meat, do your utmost to get organic. But if you're going to eat fish or prawns, organic will fool you because, and so what? Same with animals. You see, with fish you want wild. If it says organic, it just means it's been farmed. They've, instead of feeding it chemically poisoned food, they're feeding it rubbish that those fish or prawns would never eat. They're allowed to feed genetically modified grains or food to animals. If you're not buying organic chicken or organic meat, then it will be likely fed with genetically modified soya, because that's about the cheapest food to feed animals right now. So more than ever, it's important to, if we can, just refuse to let the bastards poison us.
Yeah, and as a general rule of thumb, the smaller the fish, sometimes lower the mercury levels. Sardines, good. Anything wild, line caught, ocean line caught, or wild trout or something like that. Most of the salmon that you're going to get anywhere in the world is going to be farmed, so it's going to be more expensive to get more natural salmon. It's going to be, you're going to pay a premium for it. Quite frankly, there's no way around that, no matter where you are. But you're absolutely correct there. So we really have to be more discerning in terms of discriminating what we're buying and reading the labels and things like that, and not just going for what's cheapest or what the lowest price tag is at Deathco. I know you've got that lisp, Clive, that you struggle with when pronouncing certain supermarkets, but
this is absolutely true. Yes.
Yeah, we understand. So I want to just, I mean, I've got, I acquired some of your products. I've been taking them for a while. Vitamin C, vitamin D3. I've got charcoal as well. I believe the charcoal is to help activate absorption, and magnesium blend. And also, there's many different types of forms of magnesium, and you've got them all in one blend. So these are just some of the essentials that you were talking about. Your sort of main 10, your big basket of 10. That's not to say that's everything, but those are some of the essentials there. And so in terms of the winter coming up, you mentioned vitamin D3. That's really important as well. And magnesium. What is the significance? What's the importance of magnesium?
Well, I would say that it was magnesium that primarily reversed my arthritis. Now, there are many types of magnesium, and there are 4 in the blend. And what happens with magnesium is the ultimate mineral. Really, everything works around magnesium. Magnesium's at the top of the tree. It allows relaxation. Now, what is the world lacking right now? Relaxation. Because everybody is stressed way more than we should be, way more. So the body responds to the stress of the world by burning our magnesium levels. So if we are so stressed, or we're eating food that's so devoid of magnesium that we start getting the magnesium deficiency symptoms, then that can be sort of a warning sign, like an early warning signal. And let me run through magnesium deficiency symptoms, and somebody might have one of them maybe. So magnesium deficiency symptoms can be twitches, hiccups, can be constipation, could be heart beating out of rhythm, atrial fibrillation. It could be something like restless leg. It could be wake up in the morning and stretch and you get a cramp in your leg or your foot. Could be menstrual cramps, could be problems sleeping. There are a host of magnesium deficiency symptoms. For me, it was arthritis. For many, it might be back pain, could be joint issues. The doctors said you've got to have surgery, some artificial something or other. Probably not. Probably magnesium deficiency, maybe a couple of other things. Perhaps could be a deficiency of organic sulfur. It could be that you're poisoning yourself and that's caused the joints to deteriorate. It might be the inability to digest the food. You might be eating good food, say, but if you've had your gut damaged by any doctor's drug pretty much, particularly antibiotics, many people are eating the food, but they're not actually really digesting it properly. It's going in one end of the tube and out the other without being assimilated into the organs of the body and the blood and so on. So there are some simple ways, I reckon, to sort of bulletproof yourself. I think the only thing about winter is vitamin D, but pretty much all the rest are keys to good health. And let's just go back to magnesium for a second, because many people say, well, I tried magnesium. And they maybe tried 1 a day or 2 a day, or maybe some people might have taken 4 a day. Now, that sounds like a lot. But if it's the wrong type of magnesium, the cheap stuff that you see, the common stuff you see in most stores, that one, 4, will probably might fix your constipation, but it's not going to give you enough magnesium to make a difference to all the other symptoms. Some people need 12, not 1, 2, or 4. Some people need 12, and I've seen people in a day or two of taking 12 a day for a short time, not forever, go from suicidal to all right. Seen people who haven't slept through the night soundly for 10 years sleep through the night. I mean, so there are so many things that work really quickly. Magnesium is one of them. If you're having a muscle cramp and let's say you sprayed on some liquid magnesium, which is magnesium chloride, often, let's say it might take 2 minutes for the cramp to ease, or you rub in the magnesium and very, very quickly, let's say half a minute or less, it will start to ease, because magnesium goes straight in the skin and acts immediately. So much so that, let's say a doctor is faced with somebody having a heart attack, if they're an emergency room doctor, chances are they might inject that patient with magnesium sulfate, and probably within a few seconds, the heart attack would stop, because the heart would relax. It's a muscle. The heart would just relax because of the instant hit of magnesium. So magnesium is magnificent, you might say, and it makes the other stuff, like vitamin C, work properly.
And you've got 4 in your magnesium blend here. I see you've got 4 different types of magnesium. You've got glycinate, taurinate, citrate, and malate, the majority of which is the first one, glycinate. So you've got them in a blend, 4 different types or 4 forms of magnesium. I assume that's to optimize absorption?
Well, there are advantages to each type. Taurinate has taurine. Taurus, it's an animal-based product, but this is from fermented vegetables. But I put in the taurinate for the benefits it can give to eyes. We're switching out the citrate. We're not going to use it in the new blend. We're going to be putting L-threonate in there, which is the one that people say is the best for neurological issues. And bisglycinate I like a lot, because it's really bioavailable. So, I'm never stuck on one idea. It's always, trying to look for something that's a little bit better and a little bit better.
And magnesium is very important as well in the detoxification process. It does assist in, transporting things out, through the renal system and so forth, and it facilitates the electrical functions that happen in our body every second. That a lot of people don't realize that we're like a battery, basically. And so that's why we need these essential vitamins and minerals, because they conduct the communication in our body between different cells and organs, and transporting things, sending messages from the gut to the brain, from the heart to the gut, etc. So we are like one kind of nuclear, we're like a nuclear battery, basically. And so when we're deficient, the systems don't work. And this is when you have breakdowns and degenerative conditions and so forth. But so in terms of zinc, that's the other question a lot of people have, because a lot of people are talking about, with COVID, they're saying throw the zinc at it, throw the vitamin D. So what's the significance? And I'm not prescribing to any of the mainstream conversation per se on any of this stuff with regards to COVID. I'm just saying what's out there in terms of early treatment and so forth, what various people are saying. But what about zinc? What is the major benefits of zinc?
Well, zinc has been known for a very long time to have huge benefits for a strong immune system. And if, say, you're vegan, you're eating pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, and there are many ways to get zinc from food. And but if somebody thinks they're low on zinc, they might be low on zinc because perhaps they're high on copper. Maybe there's a lot of copper pipe work in the water, or they're drinking out of something copper, or they're wearing copper jewelry. It may be that some people are overloaded on copper, and copper and zinc need to be in balance. Zinc is about happiness. Turns out that something like 70% of violent men in prison are low on zinc. Also, by the way, it turns out that a lot of violent people, men and women, get violent when their blood sugar runs low. You've heard of people getting hangry, but some people, they'll beat the shit out of you because they're hungry. Yeah. But back to zinc, men again, men who have prostate issues might want to consider they may be low on zinc and low on selenium. Men who are having a lot of sex and ejaculating lose a lot of zinc and selenium. You know, zinc has always been linked with aphrodisiacs. So, you know, the famous aphrodisiac of the lot is oysters, and they're full of zinc.
Yeah. So, yeah, oysters, absolutely great source of loading up on zinc. So, that's in terms of supplements. And just to round that out, and by the way, just click on, if you're on the show page or on our front page at 21 Wire, click through Clive de Carle. You'll see the banner ad there. That'll take you to his website, where you can inspect and look at some of these things for yourself. And if you think this is something that might help round out your program, your personal program, by all means, we encourage it. It's one way to help support the show and also to get great products from Clive. But in terms of the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, Clive, is more of a philosophical question. And we always hear this thing that, well, you're genetically predisposed to this. And we've been told this our whole life. The media is awash with this type of thinking that you're stuck. You know, if you're genetically predisposed, you're going to get certain diseases. It's in my family line. And the same thing with, I think, with the fear of the virus, fear of the microbe. In other words, there's nothing you can do. The microbe's on the loose. The virus is on the loose. If you don't take precautions, it's gonna take you down this winter. COVID is active in the area, so sort of like Goldstein active in the area with George Orwell. So there's a kind of a disempowering narrative there. And I think it does very much lend to the sort of the pharmaceutical intervention, the pharmaceutical solution to everything, as you started off the conversation talking about. And it is, so this is, I mean, in your opinion, does this, if you want to change this paradigm, is this a mindset, or is it to require somebody to change the way they look at the world in order to, if they're going to reevaluate how their health is and what they can do about it, self-empowerment I'm talking about, does it require that you have to kind of change the lens in which you're looking at the world that you live in? I know that's a little bit philosophical, but I wanted to get your opinion on that.
Well, we are self-repairing. We are what we eat, drink. We are what we eat, drink, think, and do. We are, I mean, I personally am not scared of any virus, for example, because I believe that if I stay healthy, my body can protect me against anything. You know, yes, there are some things that are dangerous out there, but viruses, no, I don't. I believe that my body is strong enough to completely resist anything with that symptomology. Bacterial infections, that's more difficult, but even bacterial infections can be overcome with things like vitamin C. One of my favorite videos is by Dr. Andrew Saul, called Reverse Pneumonia in 3 Hours. Where using vitamin C, he reverses bacterial pneumonia in 3 hours. So I stay healthy by eating healthy and taking a few supplements. I don't go overboard. And luckily, I stay remarkably healthy. And that's the way we need to be. We just need to look back at how our ancestors achieved it and try to mimic them. And they ate freshly, seasonally, locally, sensibly, and they grew a lot. They foraged a lot, got it wild. And, we can repair ourselves, even when it comes down to teeth. Years ago, I was working with a medical doctor. It was he who first explained to me that you can regrow your teeth. He explained that if you cut your finger, well, you know how to fix that. You'd keep it clean. You wouldn't put food or nasty stuff in it. You just keep it clean. It would repair. You break your fingernail, it repairs. It regrows. You get a little hole in your tooth one morning, and for the first time ever, it's, ouch, my tooth hurts. Okay, what's the difference between a cavity in your tooth and the cavity in your finger when you cut your finger? That was a cavity. What's the difference? Well, the difference is, instead of, let's say, going on a fast for 24 hours or less and, drinking water, but, just letting your tooth, like your nail or your finger, have time to regrow itself, assuming you're eating well enough, it would have regrown. But what we're told to do is go to a dentist who immediately drills out about a third of that tooth. There was a teeny little hole, which hurt. Now they've destroyed the tooth, really, a few years' time, and that will be gone. So we need to understand that on every level, pretty much, if we put the right materials in and we get the toxins out, we've got to stop poisoning ourselves, and in some cases, people have got to get the toxic metals out. The people who've had a jab in the past, any type, people who've been eating food with too much mercury, or they've lived near a coal-fired power station. Many, many people are toxically poisoned, and the same supplements that are actually good for you on the one hand are often equally good at removing the toxins. Pretty much everything we've talked about, and we've only covered about half, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that just opens up a whole nother wing of the conversation, as to what causes illness. And so many times the true causes are in fact chemical or toxic poisoning, but it's so often covered by other scapegoats. I was reading just today the disappearance of bees around the world, and they've tried to say it's because of climate change, or the African hornet has invaded Europe, and really some scientists in Germany found out that, and they've known for years, that it's actually been linked to pesticides and the proliferation and the use of certain pesticides. And that has damaged bee populations all over the world. But it's just so convenient and easy to scapegoat other things. And the industry is very powerful. They can suppress scientific research. As we know through the current COVID crisis, they'll elevate certain types of science and suppress other types, and don't fund other types of research that might be maybe inconvenient to whatever the products are that are being pushed around. So it's just so much that's the case, and people just are none the wiser. And I think it's actually been that way through modern history. I think there's so many other of these so-called pandemics or outbreaks in certain places that might have other explanations historically than the virus or the plague or whatever. So that's just another topic of conversation. But anyway, I wanted to probably round this conversation out, and I wanted to thank you for sharing your experience and sharing some of this knowledge with us, Clive. And Yeah, we want to encourage people to explore what you're offering there. Just click on the link on the show page and on our front page as well, Clive de Carle, and you look at some of these great nutritional supplements, great things that you can add to your repertoire that are going to help you be a lot healthier and round out your diet and hopefully performing better in all the things that you need in life. But thank you very much, Clive, for joining us on the Sunday Wire this week. And any final words?
Well, yes, fantastic news for beekeepers and people. Shungite, the inexpensive black mineral shungite, put near the entrance of the hive, fixes the problem. And hives that have got down to, let's say, just 50,000 bees have gone up to 5 million right away just with shungite being put at the entrance. There are videos on it.
Oh, wow. And what's the significance of shungite?
Shungite is a most interesting material. It changes water. It has all sorts of electromagnetic effects. It's an electrically conductive mineral. It's worth researching. Shungite. It's quite easy to find it, and it really is magnificent for bees, and interesting for people as well.
Yeah, and again, last thing is there's so much that we don't know about how our amazing bodies operate, how this world operates. There's a lot more to the picture, and we're probably, in terms of our knowledge and intelligence, really at a very beginning level, even in super modern society. So, and that goes for bees as well, and insects and the animal world as well. We know very little. There's a lot of phenomenon that we still don't understand. But you wouldn't know that if you're watching the news. They think they've just got it all figured out, and they've got a one-size-fits-all solution for everything in a syringe or a pill. And that's not actually the case. And people are finding out more and more that's not actually the case. And as you said, Clive, our ancestors knew that already. We've forgotten it in the last 100 years or so, right?
Well, we've been manipulated, lied to, and mind controlled.
Yeah. Well, the snake oil salesman just got more expensive suits and nice cars. And in the meantime, that's kind of what happened. They graduated from the hypothecary wagon into skyscrapers in recent years, basically. But that's another conversation, of course. We'll leave that there. But thank you, Clive de Carle, for joining us on the Sunday Wire this week.
Thanks, Patrick.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. That's Clive de Carle, and fantastic discussion, of course. And we encourage people to jump on to Clive's website there. Just click on the link on the show page, and also you'll see it at 21stcenturywire.com. We'll be doing more of these types of health features in the coming weeks and months, especially through this winter as well. And we want to be promoting the best possible overall health for our listeners and getting you guys fit and ready to go to face the challenges that you need to face. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. This is the Sunday Wire. We'll be right back.